Welcome everyone to Business Women Australia's webinar. For this month, we've got a fantastic topic, a really important topic, corporate responsibility, climate risk and reporting. And we have the phenomenal Dr Kate Ringvall, who is an expert in this field, who will be sharing with us her insights and what she's doing in this space to help organisations be prepared for this. But before we start, I would like to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me or who are checking in on the recording of this, I'm Lynn Hawkins. I'm the National Director of Business Women Australia and the founder of Business Women Australia. We grew out of a Western Australian networking group that was started originally in 2008, and we became a national collective around 10 years ago now. So we've got chapters all around Australia, and we have women from all sorts of sectors, and we can talk about that for those of you that want to stay on after the session and tell you a little bit more about Business Women Australia. We're all dialing in today from around this beautiful country we call home, and I would like to pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging, all the leaders in our Indigenous communities. I'm sitting on the land here in Boorloo in Perth, and I am on the land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We have great respect for this beautiful culture. We've got so much to learn. We did a fantastic webinar with Kyra Galanti on why Aboriginal people have come together and asked through the Uluru Statement from the Heart for us to consider a yes vote for their inclusion in our constitution. And if you haven't had the chance to listen to that webinar, please do. I know a lot of people still sitting on the fence about it. It would be, in my view, an absolute tragedy if this doesn't get through, and I have to be honest, I'm a bit worried about it. For those of you around the country on beautiful Indigenous lands, we just you know, pay our respects wherever we might be coming through. And we also have friends coming in from New Zealand today, so wonderful to have you. I love recapping what our vision and our mission is for BWA, because it just grounds us in terms of reminding us that everyone's valued and we are all working together to contribute to the greater good. And one thing that really sets us apart is the fact that we're collaborative. Everything that we do, every program, every piece of design, every event is designed in conjunction with our premium level members. They're our knowledge experts, they're our leaders, they're the ones who are actually so generously supporting our enterprise with their membership and with their knowledge. So we thank you for that, because our vision is really helping each other achieve our goals and dreams and build this network of influence, creating opportunities to really develop leadership and raise the visibility of women in Australia. So Leanne is online today. For those of you who would like to ask her later on about memberships or admin, if today's not a good time, please contact Leanne at businesswomenaustralia.com.au and she'll set up a Zoom meeting. We would love to have more members around Australia. That helps us be sustainable. And we've got loads coming up. Sydney Walk and Talk on the 16th of August. We've got Perth Chats, Cheese and Wine with Vita Carlino on the 17th of August. We're back online on the 30th with the launch of this year's Buzz magazine. Every year, I think this is our third or fourth one. I think it might be our fourth one. And then on the same night in Brisbane, we've got a sumptuous wine splash with 3 drops at the Hyatt. The 31st of August, we're back online for International Supply Chain Q&A with Kelly Crossley. That's a really interesting area, and what her insights have been during COVID, post-COVID, is well worth listening to. And it's really some real gems in there around leadership lessons. 17th of September, there's a panel Q&A on critical issues facing the state at LG Accounting Solutions. And on the 20th of September, an online masterclass, Unleash Your Potential. Jessica Schubert and I are going to be actually unpacking what it is in terms of understanding a leadership shadow and how to ensure that we're developing ourselves as leaders. I think Leanne will be hosting another podcast on the 21st of August. We're getting Kyra Galanti back to share where things are at and her thoughts about the Voice to Parliament. That'll be a podcast you can tune in and listen to. It'll be streamed live across all our channels. So book in for that one. Okay, I would like to really kick off this online Q&A with the wonderful Kate Ringvall. I met Kate years ago at one of the BWA functions, I think, that was held at HLB Manchud.
Yeah, in Sydney. Yeah.
Yeah, and you were working with IKEA at the time.
I was.
And really opened my eyes in our discussion to, this growth around sustainability and around the importance of companies and organisations to be preparing for and getting involved in looking, at their footprint and what they're doing in that space. And I've been, really been trying to sort of court you to join BWA for so many years, and finally Kate joined. It was so good to have her join. She's been a great supporter and popping in and out when she can, like so many of our community. But really now the ASIC's encouraging companies to use the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures as the primary framework for voluntary climate-related disclosures. This has really thrown a lot of issues in front of all sorts of companies, enterprises, organisations, and it's not just listed companies that are really having to get their heads around this. So I think a lot of directors and a lot of boards and executives are really concerned that they don't have the resources for this. And so for those of you who have taken the time out to come along and listen, we really need you to spread the word and to share what it is that we're going to learn today in order to, help others be prepared for what's coming. Kate's got the expertise for this. She will tell us a little bit more about it, but I would just like to share that she's pretty much been one of the key leaders driving sustainability and circular economy discussions around Australia. She's worked and studied in this field for decades now.
Let's not say how long.
She's got masters in public policy. She's a PhD in planning. And she's done a lot of work in sustainability in business, in branding, in urban planning and across sustainable cities, in transport, in transit-oriented development and energy efficiency in the built environment. So she's worked with government. Government seeks her for her work across the board, all levels of government. And she's worked in large corporations, most recently leading the circular economy agenda for GHD in Canberra. I think are you in Canberra at the moment?
Still in Canberra, yeah.
Yeah, still in Canberra. We're looking forward to getting Kate back to WA at some stage.
Soon.
And I think this work that you're doing with Galactic Cooperative might be the thing that is obviously the magnet that's bringing you home. So I'm going to throw over to you, Kate, just to maybe to share with us what's changed for businesses more recently. I just alluded to the ASIC thing, but can you give us a bit more detail in regard to our corporate responsibilities and from your lens?
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. And yeah, to backtrack a little bit. So I'm leading Galactic Sustainability, which is a small part of Galactic Cooperative, and Galactic Cooperative is a cooperative, a worker-owned cooperative, which is a lesser known entity, but we work in a different way. And if anyone wants to hear about what's this cooperative thing, I can go into more detail later. Look, the world has changed a lot, and it's really been, even in the last 5 years. I mean, if we have to put a number to it, I've been in sustainability for nearly 30 years, and the world has changed a lot. Like it's almost black and white between when I first started in the early 90s in this topic to, what the sort of conversations that we're having now. And in the business sphere, it's radically different, really. Just the fact that I have spent the last nearly 10 years in business working specifically in sustainability, and for one of the biggest brands in the world, IKEA, it says that things have changed. And thankfully now things have changed at a governmental level, certainly at the federal level in Australia, which, to be frank, for the last, 10, 20 years has not been the case, and it's been a pretty depressing place to be in sustainability, because governments have not really been addressing what we need them to address. So thankfully the world has changed a little bit, and really that's what I wanted to go over today. The TCFD, the Task Force on Climate Related Financial Disclosures, which is this global sort of task force entity that have come from Bloomberg and a lot of the other really big investment and banking financial arms, have got together and basically given us a guideline for what they expect financial entities or companies to be doing as far as their climate related responsibilities and reporting. And of course, now that has flowed on to Australia, and ASIC, which is the the government body that really looks after all companies, listed or otherwise, and their fiduciary responsibilities, has said, look, the guidelines that the TCFD have given us, we will also take on. And now the expectation is that all companies, listed or otherwise, will need to demonstrate that they've undertaken some kind of sustainability reporting and framework. And that kind of implies that you've got a good strategic direction in sustainability. And it really implies that you need to embed that into your company, which frankly is amazing. This is what we've been waiting for in my sector, at least. And if Galactic Cooperative, we're a small organisation, we're a worker-owned cooperative. One of the things that we like doing is kind of disrupting the status quo, and in particular, one of our areas, Galactic Scientific, repairs very complex technical machinery and uses 3D printing in particular to print that widget that's buried deep into some very expensive machinery that the manufacturer says, oh, it's too expensive to repair, and the owner says, yeah, okay, it's going to be more expensive to repair it, to get someone out to fix it, blah blah, than to actually just get a new one. And Andre, one of our co-founders, has said, no, that's not good enough. And really that's what we're doing, is transforming the way that those really expensive machineries, in labs and mining sites, get repaired now. And so we're not sending all of this, really important materials into landfills. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about for a long time is how can we help businesses that aren't the big end of town, who don't have the budget for a sustainability officer or someone like me, or maybe don't even have a need for someone like me. How do we help them to kind of upgrade their sustainability, to make sure that they're reducing their cost? Because the other factor of this, yes, we all want businesses to be more environmentally conscious, and we want them to have a smaller footprint, but we also want them to spend less money on resources if they don't have to. And really that's what we're coming to the market with, is a tool to help companies do this stuff themselves without necessarily having someone like me on their staff, or spend the thousands and thousands of dollars in consulting fees that they would need if they wanted to do it, have someone come in and do it for them. So I'll start sharing my screen, Lynn, and I can take people through what we're launching today. All right. Okay.
Just a reminder, if anyone does have a question that comes up, pop it in the chat box.
Yes, please. Now, where's my little, got too many things open. Okay, shift you out of there. I'm gonna push you down here. Where's my present button? Okay, just while nope.
We can see that now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the present button. Edit slide layout. No, I don't want slide layout, thanks. Okay, I'm on my laptop, sitting in my car. Here we go. How's that?
We seem to have a different, yeah, there we go. Perfect.
There we go. Beautiful. All right. So I'm calling this sustainability as a service because that's what really we're doing. We're bringing the service of sustainability to everyone, rather than you having to go out and purchase or employ someone like me. You can do it yourself. And why? I think hopefully it's pretty clear. Before I was thinking about, how do we help businesses who don't have someone like me on staff, it was really clear that the impacts of the changing climate, of natural disasters, of costs rising, are all starting to impact us as individuals, but they're all starting to impact businesses now. Costs are rising, bottom lines are getting tighter. And then we have this layer now of the TCFD guidelines that I was talking about before, really layering more and more pressure on directors. And, we know that the pressure on directors to make sure that they're, demonstrating fiduciary responsibility is high enough. And now when we layer, this climate resilience responsibility on top of it, I understand why some directors and companies are going, like, it's almost too much. But the reality is that we absolutely need to do something, and we need businesses as part of the solution, not the problem. And we have governments and big business making some net zero commitments without probably understanding the impacts on their suppliers. And the suppliers, to be fair, probably don't understand their responsibilities in that mix either. So there's lots and lots of drivers for why we need to do something different, but also lots and lots of drivers for why I think what we're bringing to the market today will help companies. So we've developed this self-service platform, sustainability as a service platform for all things related to integrating sustainability into a business, and it helps you with strategic documents that you can download. You buy a package essentially, and it will have your essentials, the things that you really need, and some tools to help you audit some of the things that you want to do within your business, whether it's understanding what are the resources that you're using, what sort of energy, how much energy are you using? Have you done a lighting audit, say, in your business, in your premises? You might not own the building or the floor, but you can still change how much energy you use by changing out lights, for instance, or putting, better curtains on the windows. All of those things that you can do, and we can help you do those things. We're essentially enabling and empowering businesses and companies to have access to expertise that they wouldn't necessarily be able to purchase, in someone like me, or they may not necessarily need someone like me. They just need someone like me who can provide that structure. And this way they can do it themselves. And so these are fully adaptable documents that we've got online. You purchase a package. It's got a, you know, depending on what you need and what your budget is, you have a sort of a core amount of policies and tools. They're affordable, they're adaptable, so you can add your logo, you add your, you know, the people that are involved, the signatures that you need, and whatever, you know, whatever you need to make them look the same as your other policies and documents that you would normally have in any business. And you know, it's a bit like I think of it as having someone like me in your pocket. And we're also building, you know, we're wanting to build a bit of a community of experts and businesses who can share what they're doing, talk about what's a challenge, what's the friction points, and really create this community of businesses who are wanting to either help each other, help their suppliers, and we're creating this portal to be able to do that. So I'm calling it sustainability as a service. You can call it a sustainability toolkit. It's essentially advice that we can provide to you on demand. You pay for 2 hours, you can pay for 4 hours, or you can, you know, get a couple of hours in the package that you buy online. And I'll put in the website address in the chat, or Kate, maybe can you put our address in the chat, please? And you'll see we've just about ready to launch this package of services that you can get. You can either buy your package, have a couple of hours and do the rest yourself, or we can take you through. You can have some more consulting hours with me, and I can take you through, you know, how do you actually develop your sustainability policy? How does it sit in your other strategic documents? If you're a you know, small business, a startup, what does that look like? What about, you know, how do you integrate what you do with what your you know, upline supplier or provider is doing, and what are some of the businesses that you're working with? What are they demanding from you? Do they want a sustainability policy? Do they want some demonstration that you understand modern slavery, for instance? You know, all of those things that you're probably getting upward pressure from your, you know, the bigger businesses that you're working with. We can help you to integrate those into your business. And ultimately, we're providing, you know, the collateral for you to be able to demonstrate that you are taking your fiduciary responsibility seriously and that you are doing something about it. So the platform is pretty simple. There's 3 packages, you know, small, medium and large. It really depends on what you need, what your requirements are, how big you are as a business, you know, how many staff you have. One of the toolkits that we've developed really sets a lot of the safety and quality and QSE kind of platform documents that are required for you to demonstrate, for instance, that you are a safe business, that you're enabling your staff to have a safe and secure workplace. And we provide all of those policies that you might need in that instance, and those things can be adapted and changed around a little bit. There's someone singing in the background. I don't know if you can hear that.
Hear that. Kate, before you go on there, I'm really interested in, like, for organisations who, you know, are sort of mid-size in service, sort of B2B environments. There's no kind of sort of product that they're manufacturing, or they're not, you know, looking, their supply issues are really around the human capital. You know,
Yeah.
is there, you know, that they'll be thinking, oh, it's probably not that relevant to us.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, part of my conversation to myself when I was thinking about how do we develop this was, what do we say to the businesses who can't see the relevance? And really, it stops with, ASIC is demanding really at this point that all businesses, whether they're small, medium, large, whether they're listed or not, it's demanding that companies demonstrate their fiduciary responsibility. And once upon a time, that was that you're solvent. You know, that fiduciary responsibility was really around, are we solvent? And now, obviously, over time, that are we solvent has also been, you know, added to with, are you providing a safe and secure workplace? You know, are you paying people properly? Are you providing the necessary safety requirements for your industry and for what, you know, what work your staff do? And now, with this layer of environmental responsibility and climate responsibility, ASIC are really saying, listen, companies, you need to demonstrate that you understand what your environmental footprint is, and so that implies that you do some kind of audit of, well, what is our footprint? What does that look like? And you know, there are plenty of ways to look, you know, to check that. And I'll also put in the link to, we work with Climate Clever, and I would recommend, if you want to check your footprint first, you know, what is the scale of your footprint as a business, go to Climate Clever and start there. Because I purposely haven't done any kind of footprinting, you know, exercise, because there's plenty of those examples out there already. And really, part of that fiduciary responsibility now is, yes, demonstrate that you know what your footprint is. Then second, you need to demonstrate that you've got the strategic framework internally in your company that says that you've managed it. So, you know, we expect that every business has some kind of strategic direction, excuse me, in a, you know, by way of a strategic policy or something, a business plan. And so the same goes in this instance. You need to be able to demonstrate you've got a sustainability policy. You've got, if you need it, some kind of policy to address modern slavery in your supply chains. Excuse me, losing my voice. Have we got some questions that I can answer in the meantime?
I know Leanne can share the ASIC link too, for those of you who want to have a look at what the regulated expectations on sustainability related disclosures are. I think you know, firstly, I'm really excited that we've got a country and a government that's taking this seriously. I think it's heartening. I mean, from a company director's point of view, it's another thing that you know, is going to be another responsibility and another burden in a lot of ways for company directors. I mean, we're really starting to find that our directors are questioning, you know, there's so many liabilities now, you know, in terms of they preferring to be on the committees, on the advisory committees rather than on the boards, you know, for personal protections. It's a really interesting time, but without these pains in changing, we will never change. And without reporting, we know for a fact that companies really only do take seriously what they're audited on.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the sad fact. I mean, we've had years knowing the facts and the evidence has been there, and we have all been a bit slow, dragging our feet.
Yeah, and that's the reality, unfortunately. Yeah, you're right.
And, you know, so I guess some of the things that our listeners and those that will be tuning into the recording are probably thinking, well, what are some of the things that I could probably get started on straight away? You know, while we're getting all our strategies and our policies and things in place. I mean, you mentioned things like, you know, looking at our window treatments and looking at our lighting and looking at our, you know, the way that we heat and cool our environments, and whether or not we're using solar and all those sorts of things. You know, so what are some of the really big ticket things that you're finding organisations are getting some good runs on the board with?
Yeah, definitely energy audit. You'll be surprised by how much energy you can save just by having a look at what the lighting is, because, you know, most office floors, people have moved in and moved out, and they're not actually fit for purpose. They're just fit for the majority, you know, of users. And you'll find, you know, there's an excess of lights near the windows where you don't need that much light, and not enough light, say, in, you know, work areas, or where there is no windows, there'll be not enough lights. So really assessing that probably is the first thing. Then understanding, you know, how do we get our hot water, for instance? Where does that come from? Are we and ask questions back to your utility providers. Are we getting charged per floor or per building? And are we subsidizing, you know, if we reduce our use, are we subsidizing, you know, the overusers down underneath us? And really go back and ask that question, because in many cases that is the case, that you're being charged for the whole building and they're just splitting it up, you know, 10 floors divided by 10. So there's no incentive to reduce your use in that case. And so I would go back and push back on that. The other area that I know businesses make a huge reduction in cost is in waste. Now, most buildings will have one solution for their waste management, and it'll be the big bins at the bottom of the building. And in most cases, you know, the building is treated again as one whole unit instead of a floor by floor kind of approach. And what it means is, in most cases, those bins are hardly ever full, because if you think about for an office-based environment, what sort of waste is likely to be coming out of an office? Nowadays, most offices have gone to the cloud, so there's a lot less paper being used. And then what else would be a waste product coming out of an office? A little bit of food, maybe.
Yeah, your printer ink.
You know, maybe some printer ink. And in most cases, individuals are now dealing with those things. You know, an individual will take the printer cartridge to, you know, Officeworks, say, and will take the coffee cups to somewhere else. And so what we're finding is those bins at the bottom of the building are being taken away mostly empty, or half empty, or 3/4 of empty, and they're priced on volume usually, and irrespective of what you put in it, it's volume of the bin. So if you're not filling up that bin, you're wasting literally all of that space that is not being filled with waste, which is great.
Well, the CFOs will be really excited to actually be able to think about these kind of concepts from a financial point of view. So
absolutely,
it's just really changing the whole conversation, not around what should we be doing, but what are the benefits of us doing this from a bottom line point of view.
Yeah, and LED switching of your lights and other kind of sort of devices makes a huge difference. I know, you know, when I was working a while ago now, I worked in the WA Police Department in that building, the very old, ugly building by the Swan River. they employed one person to change the light bulbs for the whole building. And that person worked full time, and they were busy changing light bulbs throughout the building when they failed. And someone in the area that I was working in decided maybe we should change that to LED lamps instead. And they reduced the cost from millions and millions a year down to a couple of $1,000s, and that person went on to do something else because they didn't require him to do the changing of the light bulbs.
Oh my God, that's just bringing up a whole
massive
topic, isn't it? Like, how many people does
Yeah.
it take to change a light bulb? One climate activist.
Yeah, exactly. And
I
when I heard that, oh my God, that's just mind-boggling. And that's just one thing. If you were to, you know, examine all of those other things that you can do just in your workspace, amazing.
And
Yeah.
is there any sort of place you can find, I guess through your portal, will you be adding
Yep.
some great case studies that are inspiring for those of us who may have roles either on a board to inspire
Yep.
everyone to get onto this, you know, some great examples and some case studies, because at the end of the day, it's storytelling.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
People.
Yeah.
You know, as long as the CFO is happy, there might be some savings, then they're getting everyone else on board. It's around the storytelling piece that
Yeah.
you know, this is worth the effort.
Yeah.
In times when, at the moment, let's face it, we're all dealing with a biggest issue with staff shortages.
Yes, exactly.
Climate.
Yeah.
Everyone's thinking, oh my God, we're really struggling as it is to deliver BAU, business as usual. And we're adding this other layer of kind of project work that we're going to have to do. They're going to think of it as a project.
Oh, totally. And I mean, in the short term, it is.
Yeah.
We're adding another layer, but I guess, you know, for many organizations, they're finding now that their staff want to know that they're being responsible as an organization as well. And, you know, people in my sort of sector, they will not work for a company that hasn't demonstrated their understanding of their impacts and that they're doing something about it.
Absolutely. And I'm just in total awe of this rising generation that are really keen to choose who it is that they're aligning their personal values and their time, their precious time within the organisations they're choosing to work with. You know, I was at a University of WA career mentor celebration, 20 years of that program last night, and chatting to a lot of the second and third year students who are really looking forward to, you know, graduating soon. And they're so passionate about aligning their time and their expertise and their career development with organisations that are in line with their values. You know, it's so encouraging. You know, it's I think about, you know, when I graduated, you know, and it was so much focus on profit. You know, it was always so much focus on profit, and now it's you know, profit and purpose are equally aligned, as they should be. They should be, and it's really exciting. Look, I'd love to hear from some of the other members on the call, just in terms of, you know, your interest in the subject, and you know, what your thoughts are too from where you're sitting in your work. Kate, would you like to unmute yourself? And it'd be lovely to hear sort of what you're doing and your involvement in it.
Hi. I suppose for us, we've always come from the Galactic Cooperative, I suppose, grew out of an ethos of sustainability. So you know, Kate's been involved from the beginning, and look, we've done many things within that space. And at the moment, our main area is Galactic Scientific, which is repair and service of scientific equipment. So just within that space, it's been great to have that as a learning, a way of, how should I put it? It's been interesting bringing our customers on board with where we are coming from, so that they are appreciating what we're trying to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good
Yeah,
point.
I mean, you guys have, you know, you've been in this space for such a long time. It's you're probably actually pitching yourself now that it's actually going to be something people have to do.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
I'm really glad that it's something that has come more and more. I mean, big business has always had that structure, I suppose, but bringing it into smaller and medium size, I really like that has sort of coming in.
Yeah, fantastic, Kate. And I want to throw over to Nicole. You've got your hand up there. I'd love to hear from you too.
Hi, fangirl moment. I love Kate.
Thanks, Nicole.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm interested on your comment, Kate, just now. This is not Kate Ringvall, the other Kate.
Yep.
At the same time today, many of you may or may not be aware, but there's a repair summit going on in Canberra, which is
That's where I'm at right now.
That's where you are. Oh, brilliant.
I'm sitting in my car in the car park.
So I tuned in for a couple of hours this morning before my day of meetings started. And I'm interested to hear how, with your Galactic Scientific, which by the way looks awesome, and I'd love for the Australian Circular Economy Hub to do a little case study or something on the work that you're doing there, because I think that would be a wonderful share. But in light of this conversation around the right to repair, I'm interested to hear, how does that factor into your repairing of scientific equipment, for example? Because I was hearing this morning, and we've heard, you know, in other conversations from Leanne Wiseman at Griffith and others, that the regulation and copyright infringement potential for repairing of products is a very significant barrier to people wanting to do the right thing. How does that factor into your work with the Galactic Scientific repair?
Yeah, look, so if a piece of new equipment comes into a laboratory that is usually under warranty, not a lot we can do there. Once it's out of warranty, then that is an open space for us to be able to either come in and be paid to repair pay for service. That's it. We just rock up, we fix it, and we go away. Another thing that we do provide is service agreements. So once a piece of equipment comes out of warranty, we can then put it on a service agreement, and then we know that we're looking after it once, depending on the equipment, once every 6 months, once a year, whatever it is. We come in, do preventative maintenance, and we then have the customer has an understanding that if anything does go wrong, they've got a certain amount of hours before, and we'll turn up and repair it. In saying that, we also we're starting to sell second-hand equipment. So whether that is a laboratory that is folding for whatever reason, the equipment is good, or they're upgrading, but the equipment is still good. We're finding that there is a market there for us we get the equipment usually at a very reasonable price, and we're able to service the equipment and sell it on, especially for companies that are starting up on a shoestring. Bronny is there, and Bronny Kemp is one of our customers.
Right.
With Lambda Research. So and look, and she's been interested in a lot of our secondhand equipment for a while. It's taken her a while to sort of get her laboratory up and running, but now we're trying to work with her as best as we can, with, you know, her obligations, ours, you know, trying to get everything. One of our engineers has gone on holiday for a month, and so it's just
the realities of life.
I know, exactly. But you know, it's been great working with people like Bronny. We like I said, we're very much filling a niche gap in the market. And look, sometimes because of our experience of repairing certain equipment, we are then in a good space to be able to tell our customers, look, if you're looking for a new piece, how about you think about this one or this one, because your cost on keeping it running is going to be less.
Yeah,
so we've got
great.
a whole pile of knowledge and learning from our involvement in that space. Look, something else that we did, which came about from COVID, is that engineers from over east were unable to come over to WA to service equipment. So therefore, the companies over east are calling us to say, hey, would you subcontract to then service our equipment? So we now have subcontract work with a lot of different companies because, well, it started because of COVID, but it's still there. So it's great that we've been able to make these really great relationships with companies over east and provide the service here in WA.
So I guess the question then is, sorry, monopolizing my time here. But one of the things that was really strongly highlighted, and I remember hearing this the last time the Repair Summit was on, was this lawful access. So it sounds like the pieces of equipment that you're repairing don't have like a lock or a key or a specific piece of software
anymore.
That's needed to download.
So I think one of the biggest costs to our customers is if they choose to buy new equipment, that means they need to upskill their staff, not only on how to use the new equipment, which might not vary that much between one and another, but the software will change.
Yeah.
And that's their biggest cost, is that the software will change. So we're able, because we're still back in the 80s, but
you bring institutional knowledge.
Yes, that's right. So we're able to help with a lot of that software side of things as well, is keeping everything sort of up to date and still working. And of course, if they do need to upgrade, then we can always help with their choices on how they go about doing that. So
fantastic, great example.
We do have it's great having the relationship that we have built with some of our customers has just been awesome, just really, really good. And we are looking into with us getting into secondhand equipment, we're also coming across this need within the community of being able to rent equipment. So this is opening up a whole pile of other doors. Yes.
Fantastic. Definitely, I'm going to put our comms person from the ASIC Hub in touch with you so that we can do a piece on the ASIC website. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
What I love about these kinds of changes that are forced upon organisations to actually become a part of an ecosystem conversation is that then we start to then have, the issues being shared around what they need and the problems that they're dealing with that they may not have ever really spoken to their suppliers about in the past. And that's where we get innovation and solutions like Kate was saying. We're starting to hear now that people might be interested in renting, or that could solve a problem. And so tell me about the cooperative, Kate, and Dr. Kate, I'll throw back to you, and who's involved in the cooperative and how do people get involved with the cooperative, or is it a kind of, is it a tight little group?
Well, yes and no. Yeah, we started small, small thing, big things start from small things. So it started, so Kate, myself and Andre and Adam, 4 of us, well, together, I don't know how long we've known each other. I don't want to put a number on it. Let's just say it's been a long time. And I don't know how we started the conversation, but Andre had started Galactic Scientific doing what he's doing now. But we all kind of were at this point where we were feeling disillusioned, I suppose, with the business world and how businesses ran and how people work, how much agency we had in our own jobs, and that we didn't really like that. And I think that's sort of this, we've had this combined, we want to create an organisation that meets all of our needs. And that's about right, isn't it, Kate? Yeah. And so it's kind of evolved, and Galactic Scientific was the first kind of little business that we started. Then we've added a few other little businesses where one business is creating, I always call them enclosed computers. That's not the word though, is it? They're computers that you would take into a lab situation where there's really toxic, what are they called, Kate?
Yeah, Fiona's just put on the chat. It's a sealed PC.
Oh, yes, sealed PCs. You know,
So,
yeah. Thanks, Fiona. That sounds much better. Sealed PCs go into environments that are harsh, and they're really replacing. So in some of these labs, Andre was being asked to try and fix these poor laptops that had basically been eaten alive by the nasty chemicals in the lab and were lasting 3 months, you know, if that. And so now we have this sealed PC that's impenetrable. It basically lasts, you know, as long as the computer lasts. And oh my God, what a novel solution that I'm surprised that nobody came up with it before, but you know, now Galactic does that. And so it's really given us this vehicle, I suppose, the cooperative, to come up with ideas to help our community. And really that's what, you know, sustainability as a service, or the sustainability toolkit is really doing. It's democratizing sustainability advice for businesses who wouldn't normally be able to afford someone like me, or really need someone like me. You know, not every business will need someone with my skill set, but they need some of the things that I might do for them. And so what I really wanted to do with this offering was to really disrupt, I suppose, you know, sustainability consulting, because it's expensive, and really disrupt this idea that it's only the big business, only big business can afford that kind of advice, and really helping small to medium businesses, or any size business, but you know, those businesses that wouldn't normally employ someone like me can now have access to the skills that I have and what I might do for a business, and for a price that is, you know, affordable, meets their needs. They can decide what they want, and so it's adaptable. They can, you know, change it to meet whatever branding they might have in their business. And in particular for, you know, businesses like startups, they're literally starting from scratch. In most cases, they don't have the expertise to be able to work out, well, you know, do I need some kind of QHSE auditing tool? Do I need you know, working from home policy? I don't know. You know, all of those questions. Do I need a sustainability policy? I would say yes, but you know, maybe they don't yet. But this way, they can start from scratch. They can have a small package. It gives them the absolute basics, but it means that they're meeting their fiduciary responsibilities from an ASIC perspective, and they're also demonstrating that they know that they have an impact and they're doing something about it.
So what type of companies do you want to hear from to start off with? I mean, if I had a magic wand and said, okay, you're going to get 10 phone calls over the next week, who are they going to come? Who is it that you really think should be ringing you first?
Look, it could be anyone, but I mean, I'd like to hear in particular from businesses who probably don't think they need someone like me. So it might be, you know, a mechanics, for instance. Do they actually need someone like me? Probably not, but they have a lot of costs that, in particular, that they could be avoiding if they did something like our resource use audit or energy audit. And if they're a company, which they will be, they need to demonstrate that they're responding to the ASIC requirements for their business, whether they like it or not, but also any other business. It literally covers any business that is a company, listed or not. If you're a director, you need to demonstrate that you're meeting your fiduciary requirements and responsibilities. And hey, that now means also your climate responsibilities.
And what is the time frame on this? I mean, how like, you know, I'm involved in quite a few different companies. I mean, what's the time frame? What's the
Yeah, that's a really good question. I haven't seen anything yet, but what we will be getting to eventually, and what they've sort of hedged at, is there will be expectations for reporting. So probably online, similar to the way that we would do our tax return. There'll be some online platform that every company has to report to.
So
and that'll be coming.
You're really letting us get on the front foot by
absolutely
by being prepared and trying to get this conversation going. I mean, we literally invited thousands of business owners and company directors to this and I expected 100 to be on this call, and I'm like, wow, this reminds me of when the modern slavery discussions
same thing. The number of companies who don't know that they are liable to report is scary. I mean, to be fair, the government has not provided any kind of check system. But it's coming. I think eventually we'll get to a point where you will have to demonstrate in some way that you have done your due diligence as far as modern slavery, as far as climate resilience, and the solvency and your safe workplaces. All of that is required.
Putting my strategic hat on, I mean, are you pursuing the opportunity to actually supply the online framework, the checklist, to the government so that you are the supplier of that tool, that it makes it very easy for us to then just plug in all the bits? Or is there
that would be nice
if you do that?
Look, that would be really nice. I think my colleague Kate is in agreement.
I mean, if it's easy for people and it's through their sort of their own MyGov portals, and it becomes another thing, like we've employed people through boosting apprenticeships. It's so easy. You can just upload your bits. It's all great. You've got your
why not?
contracts.
Yeah, I would want to do it in partnership with our friends at Climate Clever, because they do the numbers, the footprinting. But yeah, why not? That'd be great. Easy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something. I mean, what are you doing tomorrow, Kate? You're in Canberra, aren't you?
I'll just go and knock on the Prime Minister's door.
These are the things we have to lobby, right? At the end of the day, we've got to find who are the parliamentarians who want this sort of thing to happen, and then how do we talk to them and start lobbying? So
while I'm still here,
we're happy to endorse that from a business Australian point of view. So if you need industry partners, I mean, we're a company privately owned, designed, developed and delivered by women for women. But the other thing too, I'm really interested in hearing, Aileen, it's so lovely to see you online, and I'll be really interested, you're such a deep thinker and highly intellectual too. What's your interest and how are you going to tackle this in your company?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Lynn, for that warm welcome. It's lovely to see you as well. I've been quite busy recently. So the reason why I was interested in this conversation is that I've actually been looking at climate responsibility a little bit more broadly, in terms of looking at something that is now really front of mind for a lot of corporates, which is the free, prior, informed consent matter. And a lot of the templates, the frameworks, etc., at the moment look really quite strongly at the tangibles. You can measure waste, you can measure water, you can measure electricity use, that sort of thing. And to a certain extent, you can measure greenhouse gases and stuff. But I was thinking, and so when you brought up the issue of modern slavery, that's a whole supply chain issue. It's something that's a little bit deeper and a bit more difficult to get into. So then I've just been thinking about, how do small and medium-sized businesses confirm and demonstrate free, prior, informed consent has been achieved. And the example that came to mind that was all over the media around Perth a couple of years ago, there was a craft beer maker, and they used a native ingredient to flavour a particular type of craft beer, and it was amazing. But the locals absolutely were like, how dare you? You didn't even come and ask us if we could use it culturally, culturally valuable, ingredient, and now you're telling everybody how wonderful, your craft beer is, and that was like a massive mistake, right? So the reason why I joined this conversation really was just to see how we might deal with that, or maybe it's just something that's coming up that people, it's coming up, and we've got to start thinking about that. I don't know. That's really what I was thinking throughout this conversation.
Awesome.
I think it has to be part of it.
A nice aspect to that, because it's a massive issue. The massive issue around, cultural ownership of, of not just, in terms of land, but in terms of flora and fauna and practices, past practices, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, I think it has to be part of the conversation, Aileen. I think that goes without saying. Yeah.
What would you like to see, Aileen? What would you like to see in terms of assisting organisations to not repeat those mistakes that was made by that craft beer company?
Yeah, that's a really tricky, it's a very important question, but also very tricky. And I have been thinking about it from a very broad perspective, in that it's really to bring it to front of mind. I actually wonder, not just the government, but also the institutional investors, the banks that give you the loans to set up these small companies. Should there be some sort of question, to have people think, and of course, we can't always answer, oh yes, I've got free, prior, informed consent for whatever, but it's a question at the front end where people think, this is actually an area that I've never, come across before, but I should start thinking about it. So it's just beginning to put that in front of mind, and I think it also lends itself to this whole thing around the voice, and I'm not going to, do any advocacy or anything, but it's really important that people understand the reason why there's this whole conversation out there about the voice is probably that the Indigenous community, the Aboriginal community, really need to be front of mind. They really need to be considered in all of our business decisions. I don't really have any answers. I was just here to ask questions and maybe have a conversation. It might be actually a separate discussion.
You've definitely asked a big question. I think it probably does need its own show all on its own, but it has to be part of this conversation as well. I think it has to be.
What this is really highlighting for me too is, I'm in the world of, strategic development and business planning, and, so much of our focus is on, what a minimal viable product looks like, what it's going to cost to develop, what it's going to cost to market it, what it's going to cost to service it, and really broadening the criteria in which we discuss each of these key elements of strategic planning needs to incorporate, as we know, these environmental, societal and social and governance issues. And now we're starting to really understand how deep and how complex and how many aspects within, if we were to say, okay, here's an environmental checklist, here's a social checklist in terms of, supply chain and slavery and impact and social and inclusion and diversity, and then here's our checklist, around governance. It's like, whoa, but it has to happen, because if we're going to be, good citizens of the world and look after the planet for the future generations who haven't yet been born and don't have a voice at the table.
Yeah,
then
I
absolutely
saw
ultimately have to have it. And I know that
absolutely.
I know families, family offices, and the fund managers are grappling with this too, because there's a massive ship. It's very hard to turn this big ship around quickly. Even within family offices, you know, you've got the generations that may have generated their wealth perhaps through, say, mining and resources, and they're having conversations with their children and their grandchildren and don't necessarily get it.
Yeah.
It's confronting, and there's a dynamic there, you know, amongst all the family that needs to also be preserved in terms of the relationships and the discussions around where their wealth is going to go in terms of impact investing.
Yep.
And of course, we've seen, you know, the Mike Cannon-Brookes and the impact that one individual with wealth can do inside an organisation when they become a major shareholder. And more recently,
Yes.
you know, in the UK, I think the recent activation against the directors of Shell, where there was only a tiny percentage of shareholding from Client Earth. I don't know if you've followed that.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's really but what is
change.
interesting is that it's getting into the courts, and so it's bringing about conversations. And I think big companies and small companies, small business are just as probably not actually as understanding about the impact that it's going to have on their operations. I think big businesses are working and trying to prepare because they know there's a lot at risk. Shareholders have changed. It wasn't just about shareholder return. It's now about also responsibility to shareholders' desires for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, which is where it needs to go. I saw a stat recently that said if of you know, the large 20% of the big brands, if they had all met the full cost of their business choices, they would be unviable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess biting off, you know, I guess with anything in life, we hope there's the 20-80 rule, that 20% of our actions can bring us 80% of outcomes.
Yeah, I hope so.
You know, let's just hope we pick the right 20% to get that big impact. And I guess from my point of view, I mean, I work a lot in professional services, you know, sort of mainly boutique and mid-tier clients in my portfolio. And I know for a fact they aren't even thinking about this stuff. You know, I'll bring it up on our agenda next week, you know, when I'm doing my check-ins with the teams and say, what are we doing about this? Have we even thought about it? And, you know, what are we doing? I think it'll be fairly simple. I think the message that Galactic could potentially ensure is that it's not going to be difficult. And by having this framework that you've developed, this toolkit, this fantastic opportunity, is that it's actually going to make it even more simple than if that wasn't there.
Absolutely. And that has been the plan all along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So out of the Galactic Cooperative, that came out of what looked like a medical and science equipment kind of background. And what you're now doing with the sustainability pieces, it's almost like you're going into this other kind of potentially massive expansion outside a fairly niche market that you were working in as a group.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's been a big journey in transformation, I think, across the board, but also in our own little areas transforming. I'm about to run out of battery power, so I'm going to try and jump on my phone. Kate, do you want to add anything there?
We've only got another 20 minutes max, but we would like to keep some time aside at the end anyway to
I'm jumping on my phone
to have a chat to Leanne. Yep. Well, Kate, do you want to add some thoughts about that?
I just that we so many things overlap, and we're so multidisciplinary within our own business that none of this all of this overlaps. It's not actually as siloed as you might think. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, good point, Kate. Yes.
Yeah. That's all.
Yeah, and I guess too, it'll be interesting seeing how conversations with, you know, with business owners that are focused on, you know, sort of generating revenue and in worlds that you haven't had that experience with, you know, how those conversations will change compared to, you know, your customer base that's currently, you know, in that scientific world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to rephrase the question.
Brain.
My brain's gone.
No worries at all. It was really more of an observation.
Session, yes.
We've
yes.
got some other people on the call here too. What sort of things are coming up for others around where you're at in this journey around preparing for the reporting? Is anyone else happy to share where they're at? Maybe Leanne, what are your thoughts in terms of, you know, obviously you're pretty much running Business Women Australia in the background from an operations point of view. What are the things that you're thinking you might like to be tackling?
Well, we had to tackle sustainability, like obviously on a much smaller scale, even when we started out, and it was the basic points of, you know, well, as two people who do, you know, work from home, what can we control? And it was the things like Kate mentioned earlier. It was like the ink cartridges, going to Officeworks. It was making sure that, and it's a really simple things, not printing out your emails, using less ink, recycling what you can, but predominantly it's trying to get the small businesses to be aware of what they don't need, because we've got so many things that we do need every day and it's all around us and we've got to have it. But you kind of got to scale back and go, what don't we need?
Yeah.
You know, we don't need to print everything off. We don't need everything sent to us via snail mail anymore. You know, we've cut that out now. And, you know, and, you know, you watch it over the last 20 years, communication alone, how it's changed. Yeah, and sometimes we still get stuck in things that we did even 10 years ago. And having that mindset with sustainability of, well, just because we did it 10 years ago, do we still need it today? Is the other thing.
Yeah, good points. Very good points. David Kerr's on the line. Maybe you'd like to unmute yourself, David, and share your thoughts.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for that. Mainly just doing my usual thing of hearing other people speak so I can understand different perspectives and shape my own. I guess one of the things that's come out of that more recent part of this discussion was that there's an issue of scale, I think, within business. And whereas it's almost like what happened with the dairy industry, where only the big ones survive ultimately because they've got the infrastructure to be able to actually manage the requirements of the industry. There is a danger here, like for the small, medium business, this is almost like a different language to them. And they've got their head downs and their bum up, as you know, just trying to get that bottom line happening for them. And they don't have the bodies or the infrastructure or the profitability to afford external supply of those additional requirements to meet the obligations which are coming down the line. So to me, that's going to be one of the biggest challenges. There's a marketing issue within that as well, in terms of those who shape and require these policies to be fulfilled. You don't want to kind of set up a system where the majority of people fail because they haven't got the capacity to deliver, and you actually drive them out of the game, and then all you're left with is this diminished landscape of large organisations which have perhaps not got the same community connectivity and all of this sort of stuff that we value so much. In our organisation, for example, we've been here for perhaps 35 years. We're a dolphin discovery centre. So we're right on the beach. We have dolphin tours and all this sort of stuff. But in our journey towards a review of the organisation and sustainability, a part of that was clearly financial. And so we looked at how we set up different income streams to generate internal profit to support our ultimate goals, which are conservation, education and research. Now that's been a real challenge, of course, because you know, we went to a larger building and then we got 12 months of operation before COVID hit and everything got shut down. But unfortunately, your costs didn't get shut down. They kept going because we also have aquariums which require pumps and 24-hour power and all this sort of stuff. So there's been some challenges along the journey, and we're undertaking another review at the moment to see how we make this sustainable as an operation. My goal ultimately was to try and prove that environmentally focused organisations can be sustainable through bringing together business aspects as well as those kind of environmental aspects. That's the model I was trying to pursue, and also to show that in our urban environment we can actually have an environmental partnership where industry, urban and environment can work in harmony. So that's the challenge, but not been easy. And I'm often lacking another 2 or 3 people that I need to be able to deliver on some of these requirements that are increasingly coming to the fore, and I think which is going to become more demanding in time. So I guess that's just one of the things. I also have about 100 local volunteers which help, and 100 international volunteers when the borders are open and we can get people here. So it's a model that I think has a broader community benefit than, you know, from a mental health perspective and all those other things, as well as the core, you know, environment, education, research aspects of what we do. But somehow or other, as we all know, all of you guys know as well, somehow or other you've got to pay the bills. And that's the challenge. And of course, we have a hospitality aspect to that, which is even more challenging, given the labour force requirements that someone mentioned earlier on, just finding the people to be able to do the work in a state where they have got much better financial prospects if they go and work for some of these more resource-based organisations, which perhaps don't have the same philosophy. So I might just leave it at that for this stage, but I'm very much enjoying the conversation. So. And
it's wonderful to have you here, David. You know, that perspective is really eye-opening, because I guess it's not something that, unless we operate in that kind of world, we probably would have never really thought through all the challenges that you must be facing. And it really does highlight the relevance of, you know, these conversations across industries and across sectors and across different types of organisations. So are there any questions before we wrap up? Yes, Candy's got a question. Excellent. Candy, I'm glad you found the Zoom link. I just saw your LinkedIn message. So unmute yourself. And
I've just unmuted. I don't know, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, the reason I was interested in this, and some of you might not know, I'm a member of the Governance Institute and a lawyer. So in the Governance Institute, we discuss ESG, environmental, social and climate responsibility, literally all the time, and AI is constantly coming up. And the other thing is I am a member of the Labor Party as well, so I have direct access to the Federal Minister, Matt Keogh, which is really handy, just to talk about topics and pushing issues there. But the main thing that's probably come up for me recently is, and I understood what Kate said about being disillusioned in what you're doing, and that's why I walked out of the industry. I was in oil and gas and mining in senior level leadership, and I just had enough, and I haven't worked for 2.5 years, so I've been kind of just going with the flow, and this has led me to BWA as well, which I will be a member soon, I promise you. And the other thing is, but I've just had a conversation with my daughter, who's been working in the background over a year on launching a leather making business for belts and all sorts of things. And it's about to launch. And we had a conversation, and she said to me, look, Mum, I can only manufacture, look after all of this stuff. And there's a lot of interest in it, but could you just think about actually managing my business? So that put me in a different mindset, because I thought, I hadn't even thought about that, and to do something completely different. So again, so we've already been looking at sustainable packaging, all those sorts of things. So that's from ground up grass levels, that's really put my mind into what you've all been saying today with modern slavery, which is we've discussed and things like that from a grassroots level business. But the other thing I just want to raise is through the Governance Institute, they took us to the Good Samaritan industry, which I thought was amazing. They are doing everything to actually reduce landfill. They're bottling, even around our area, because we've got the facility not far, there's queues of cars banked up going to the bottle banks, literally from that, because they're open from 9 till 5. And I've noticed even on the ground, there's so little bottles and cans because people are just scooping them up. So that's even helped clearing the landfill and people getting a little bit of money in their pocket. But also they're doing a lot with clothing because we got to meet the CEO and walk through the premises. So even organisations like the Good Samaritan Industries are absolutely doing their bit for reducing landfill and helping the environment in that respect. So, but yeah, I totally agree with everyone. Everyone's concerned about the planet. I mean, even my kids, and you hear the younger generation, they're doing what they can as well. So it's really refreshing to see the younger generation are really passionate about it too. So, but that's all I wanted to say in general. So.
Thanks, Candy. That's it's great to hear the perspective, you know, having come out of oil and gas in such a big corporate environment and then realizing about the challenges and the opportunities from a grassroots startup. It's really exciting to be able to hear your journey as you go forward with that. But I just want to cross if I can, Seren, can I ask you to unmute? I mean, you're the voice of our future leaders. Seren's actually a graduate in industrial engineering from Turkey, and she's over here working and doing her Cert 4 in leadership management. She's interning with us at Business Women Australia. But I'm really interested, Seren, you know, in your thoughts. You know, what's coming up for you in terms of the world that you're hoping to work in and be a part of and be a leadership, you know, be a leader in the world? What is it coming up for you in terms of this conversation?
Yeah, so I'm always interested in like waste management and sustainability as personal. And then I'm really glad that like Australia government is doing really like taking a big step on that. But I don't know much about the corporate world yet, but as a hospitality worker, I can say I think in hospitality businesses, there's so much maybe things to do or in terms of that. But at the same time, I'm also studying, and one of my subjects, my lecturer mentioned about, let's say we are choosing between 2 hotels, and one of them is sustainable and it's more expensive, and because it's sustainable. And he was like, yeah, well, obviously, yeah, we care about environment, but we're not going to choose the more expensive one. And I was like, if you care about the environment, actually, I think that's what you need to do. But yeah, so that point of view also made me think like, yeah, people, like everything's going to be sustainable, whatever, but what's going to be happening in terms of prices? Because that's what actually most of the people also care about.
Yeah, well, it is a certain percentage of population is price sensitive, but we know from a marketing strategy point of view too, Seren, that there is a massive market of people who are prepared to pay a little bit more for something they believe in or a different experience. So the challenge for organisations who are incorporating sustainable practices that could potentially make their prices more expensive, the opportunity is to deliver on a different service and a different experience that is maybe a little bit creative or out of the box, that people will be prepared to actually be feeling that they're getting a value, greater value than than the competitors. And so for businesses, one of the things that we really are getting them to understand is that pricing and the way we price and the way we package the experience is actually one of the most powerful ways of sitting inside a market segment and to really understand that market segment that's going to have, you know, an understanding of the value and be prepared to pay for it, and in fact seek it, because we don't want to market to everybody. And if someone's price sensitive and you're going to go, you know, for a volume product and a cheaper price and what have you, well, that they're going to get what they pay for, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, there's ways of working that around in strategy. Dr. Kate, did you want to add any thoughts to some of the conversation that's been coming up?
Yeah, look, I thought David's points were completely valid, and it is a bit scary for small businesses, I think, particularly given, you know, these added responsibilities now from ASIC. That's a big layer now for smaller businesses. But I guess, you know, my perspective is, yeah, okay, it is another layer. It is another, you know, bit of responsibility that you have to embed in your business. But if you take the perspective that this will actually help us to reduce cost, maybe that's a bit of a sweetener. I think it wouldn't matter what business or location or building you're in, there will be costs that you can save if you look into it. And what we're offering with this sustainability as a service and toolkit is that opportunity to reduce your cost at the end of the day.
I love that. I love that positioning, and I think that is probably a really great place to finish off.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Kate. I think that you've really done a great job. This has pretty much been the soft launch of Galactic.
Yep.
It's the first time we've been out in the market talking about this. It's going to be the beginning of loads of conversations. I'm sure that the Governance Institute and Nicole's group, what was your group called, Nicole? The Circular Economy people? Australian
Circular Economy, ACE Hub.
ACE Hub.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, ACE Hub.
Okay, can someone throw that in the chat box too, so that I've got that in my notes?
Will do.
I'd love to hear more about what you're doing in that space too, Nicole. Look, these are the conversations that we get, and even if we get, you know, a handful of different sector people coming into the conversations, then it starts the conversations outside this webinar. And, you know, we've got some work to do clearly. We want to really get way more of these conversations out and more people thinking, actually, this is relevant for me, rather than, oh, climate reporting and sustainability, okay, that's not relevant for me. Despite the numerous individualized invitations I sent out, I think there's some hoods being put on people's heads and eyes, and they're not really wanting to look at it until they need to. And quite often we see that with Australian SMEs, you know, until it's absolutely vital, then they have to, if they can't get away from it, they'll have to do it, and then they'll try and do it the best they can. So at least we've got that. We know who to go to, Kate. We'll be in contact with you. We will definitely love to take our first steps as Businesswomen Australia, so that I can understand too, you know, as a management consultant, I need to walk the talk.
That's right.
So we will sign up, and we will take it from there. If anyone wants to contact Kate, we will be following up, and she's got all your contact details. She'll send you all an email anyway, and LJ will send out where the recording link is. Please share the link. We might tag you on one of our posts on LinkedIn, so that you can also like, share and comment. Any last minute comment from Tracy over Angel Investors over in New Zealand? What are your thoughts over there? Are you dealing with the same issues?
Yeah, the issue that we have here mostly is the number of different schemes everybody has to report on and comply with, particularly because we've got so much in primary industry. So yeah, for us, I think at the moment it's about trying to rationalise the amount of different programs that we need to be thinking about, who we comply with, you know, the task force and GRI, and now there's the new ISSB, and then the wine industry has a whole lot of, you know, retail schemes that they have to comply with as well, like BRC and then sustainable wine growing. So it's just this huge maze. And I think the hard part is going to be working out what the priorities are, particularly around those, I think was mentioned before, the intangible pieces, particularly the S and the ESG, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And a lot of great commentary today that has given us ideas for topics for the future. So thank you all. I'm going to stop the recording now, but please stay on and hear a little bit more about Businesswomen Australia if you are interested, or if you want to have a bit of a chat to catch up. I'm staying on for another 15 to 20 minutes as well.